The Democrats have sounded the alarm. Republican Glenn Youngkin's victory was fueled in part by his commitment to parents' rights and opposition to critical race theory, as well as a full embrace of the current culture war. President Biden's sinking poll numbers probably didn't hurt either. Last night's upset seemingly provides the GOP a blueprint for the midterm elections. Can Republicans utilize the same strategy to rack up wins elsewhere in years to come? Chris Putnam, Texas Congressional Candidate, joins me now to shed some light on these questions. Chris, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Buck. It's really exciting. I'm a big fan, so just a tremendous honor.
Thanks so much. So how do we turn this into, because I speak to people in all 50 states on radio, right? And people from all across the country watch this program. And I'm always trying to tell them Virginia should be the template for the rest of the country. How do we make that a reality?
Well, I couldn't agree more, right? If anything, what we saw last night, and not just in Virginia, but across the country, was, full repudiation of this train wreck, that's been the Biden administration for the last 10 months. But it was, from a campaign point of view, managed very differently. And I think the most important factor is that we had Republican candidates this time that, just went full on into the culture wars, that weren't afraid to go fight those culture wars and take on some of the bad actors that, promote a lot of these divisive, the race politics. And so because they own that, I think voters responded in kind. I think people are tired of it.
Democrats, at least the ones I think who are honest with themselves, are seeing this as certainly a moment that they should pay some pretty close attention to, and that the same old politics of, everything we don't like is racist, and shut up, we'll spend more money and make all the problems go away. That's not going to cut it going into this midterm election year. Here's ABC's John Carl giving his version of the analysis. I want to have you react.
George, this is a sonic boom of a wake-up call for Democrats. Biden won Virginia by 10 points just a year ago. He won New Jersey by 16 points. And the big factor is the one you mentioned. Republicans vastly outperformed in the suburbs. That is precisely where the battle for control of Congress will be waged.
What do you make of it? Is it a wake-up call that they will heed? And are they going to go toward the center, or are they going to double down, the Democrats?
Well, I actually, I don't think they're going to hear it. All recent evidence, suggests that they'll double down. I mean, they just don't get it. And, look, this guy actually goes back to the election last year. I mean, they sold the Biden administration, as one thing, and the reality was something very different, and voters are reacting to that. Well, it's the same thing with, this divisive race politics and critical race theory, and these racist dog whistles, as the Democrats suggest. It's nonsense. That's not the reality of this American. It certainly was not the reality in Virginia last night. When you saw for the first time ever an African-American lieutenant governor female be elected to statewide office, not to mention a Hispanic attorney general, first time elected to statewide office, and 54 of Hispanic voters voted Republican. So, look, this is not even about Republican versus Democrat or conservative versus liberal anymore. This is about right versus wrong. Most Americans, and particularly independents, I think, know the difference.
Here's John Heilman over at MSNBC talking about his view of the scene. Watch.
The state was bright blue yesterday, and now, as of next January, the state's going to be almost entirely in control of Republicans. And that's a bloodbath.
Well, and
it's a bloodbath in a state that Democrats have dominated for the past decade.
I mean, he's seeing it for what it is. The data doesn't lie here. Where else do you think Republicans might be able to not just, win, but win big going into these midterms? I mean, I know you're running.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to win big across the board. And again, I think what was really different, that we saw last night is, we had a problem in the suburbs, particularly with certain demographics, in the last year or so. But folks are just rejecting in kind, these efforts by the national lobbies and the teachers unions to impose critical race theory, on our schools and on our students. And we have a very prominent battle for that going on right here in Fort Worth, Texas. In fact, last night, major bond initiative is hanging in the balance, and these things almost never lose, right? It is hanging in the balance, and three other ISD bonds were rejected because, look, people are tired of, our public schools failing while investing all this money in critical race theory curriculums and staff. And in the case of Fort Worth, Texas, $2 million, just in the last year. And so I think we're going to see this nationally. I think we did last night. And, I absolutely think it's a preview of this enormous red wave that we're going to see next cycle.